I in the right place? Oh, yeah.
Good evening. Can we all take a seat, please? Good evening. Can we all take a seat, please? I'd like to call to order the Village of Gurnee Planning and Zoning Board for this Wednesday, July 10th, 2024. Can we have roll call, please?
Present.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Present. We do have a quorum. And Mr. Nordentoff just walked in. I'll give him a minute to get up here. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Before we start the official agenda, I'd like to welcome our newest member to the Planning and Zoning Board. Ronita Martin joins us this evening. She's retired from the College of Lake County, where she was in the community program development. She's a former member of Gurnee's Economic Development Committee, a longtime resident. Her family went through the Woodland and Warren school systems, and she volunteered for many committees at Woodland along the way. So if everyone please join me in a round of applause. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our meeting that was held back on May 15th. I have one correction. It's in the thing where we were talking about the church sign, and it's right after they made their presentation, and it's about 2/3 of the way down on the page. It says, it said that I asked if the board had any questions regarding the rezoning petition, and I'm pretty sure I must have said request because it wasn't a rezoning. I can show you exactly where it is, Audrey, after the meeting.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any comments or changes? No. If not, a motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Morgan.
Second.
Second by Mr. Papp. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, excuse me, is a final plat of subdivision for property located at 3437 Cheyenne Road, the Crans subdivision.
Yes. The petitioner, Mr. Scott Kranz, on behalf of Ms. Pamela Johnson, is seeking the subdivision of property located at 3437 Cheyenne Road. The subject property is approximately 30,600 square feet and is zoned R2, Single Family Residence District. The PZB has recently recommended approval of a variance to the R2 district minimum lot area standard to allow the subdivision of the subject property into 2 lots, one of which was to be substandard. The village board approved the variance request on June 3rd, 2024. To refresh your memory, the petitioner also resides at the property across the street from the subject site, which is address 3438 Cheyenne Road, and intends to subdivide 3437 Cheyenne to rent out the existing home on the eastern portion of the site and keep the western portion vacant for the family's passive recreational uses. The scope of project does not include any changes to the existing public improvements and easements, and no new public improvements or easements are proposed. The plat has yet to be finalized, but the draft is provided on the screen here. Engineering staff recommends that the PZB forward a favorable recommendation to the village board for the subdivision. The applicant is here to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions? If not, a motion to recommend to the village board would be in order.
Do that.
You want to do that? Okay.
Motion to forward a favorable recommendation on the final subdivision plat of the property at 3437 Cheyenne Road.
We have a second?
Second.
Second, was that you, Todd?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? A roll call, please.
Aye.
Yes. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is an informal review request from Fiduciary Real Estate Development for 16.7 acres located on Tri-State Parkway between Grand Avenue and Cemetery Road.
Okay. Okay. Yes. The petitioner, Mr. Anthony DeRosa of Fiduciary Real Estate Development, is seeking informal feedback on purchasing a 16.7 acre parcel along Tri-State Parkway and rezoning it from O2 General Office District to R6 Multifamily Residential District to develop 140 multifamily dwelling units housed in 10 freestanding buildings. The proposed development will be located on the east portion of the site so as to not impact the existing wetlands and stormwater detention facility that exists on the site. The property currently owned by the Rohrman family is located directly across Tri-State Parkway from the new restaurant depot. The comprehensive land use plan denotes that this property as industrial mixed use as an extension of the Grand Tri-State Parkway, Tri-State Business Park. The proposal calls for a density of 8.3 units per acre, which is considered high-density residential per the village comprehensive plan. All bulk standards will meet the code for either the R5 or R6 districts, with the exception of the front setback, which is required at 30 feet, but is proposed at 10 feet. With the presence of the wetland and stormwater detention, the developable area is narrow, resulting in a diminished front yard setback. The deviation in setback could be handled through a planned unit development in exchange for the preservation of the wetlands on the site. Some discussion points for the PZB may be: 1, comprehensive plan inconsistency; 2, appropriateness of multifamily residential along a very commercial industrial roadway; and number 3, exchange of reduced front yard setback versus preservation of wetlands. The applicant is in attendance to walk the PZB through their plans. Any feedback you can provide will help to determine the next steps for them.
Okay, thank you. As is indicated, this is an informal review. It's a kind of unique opportunity where a potential developer or petitioner can come before us and present their ideas in an informal manner, and then we can give candid feedback and help them craft a proposal that perhaps would be acceptable. No action is going to be taken out of this meeting, like there'll be no recommendation to the village board. It'll be just feedback back to fiduciary. And no one's really bound by anything we say here tonight because it's informal and things are subject to change. But if you could briefly give us an overview of what your proposal is.
Great. Thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Tony DeRosa with Fiduciary Real Estate Development. Address is 789 North Water Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. We met with the staff a couple months back to talk about this opportunity, and we've put together a brief PowerPoint presentation to walk you through kind of who we are, what we do, and what we're looking to do on this property. So with that, we can go ahead and go to the first slide, please. Our team, Fiduciary Real Estate Development, we are the developer here. I've got my team members here. We also have our design partners, AG Architecture and Landmark Asset Partners here tonight. And then our civil engineering partner will be Manhard Consulting for this project. A little bit about us, Fiduciary Real Estate Development. We're based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're an experienced multifamily developer and investor in all types of real estate. We were founded about 40 years ago. We've grown our business successfully into becoming one of Wisconsin's largest real estate investment companies. We've developed and owned upwards of 11,000 apartments throughout the Midwest and the southeast part of the country. We have a portfolio that's valued conservatively about $1.5 billion. We've been very active the last 10 to 15 years. We've raised about $500 million from our private equity group, and put in place about $1 billion in financing on our projects. We've been very active in the Chicago suburbs the last 7 years. I'm just going to highlight 2 projects that we've done in the last few years. This one was called The Seasons at Randall Road. It's on Randall Road, just north of Interstate 90 in West Dundee. This was a 380 apartment unit project. The next slide will show you exterior images of our clubhouse, our amenity package, which will be very similar to what we're proposing here in Gurnee. The next slide is another project we just finished in a suburb of North Aurora. This was 260 apartments. Again, similar design and look and feel to what we're proposing here. And the next slide will give you a feel for not only the clubhouse in the bottom right image, but the other 3 images rounding out the slide show and give you a feel for what the interiors of the apartment homes would look like. In terms of the subject property we're here to talk about tonight, it's 16 acres. It's currently zoned O2 General Office, and we're proposing to rezone to the R6 PUD Multifamily Residential District. Our overall project size is 140 apartment homes spread over 10 buildings, 14 units per building. Gives us an average density of 8.3 apartments per acre. It's a very unique site because there are a lot of site constraints associated on this property. First and foremost, about half of the site is made up of an existing wetland. There's stormwater that drains from the north from the car dealership and has created a wetland over time and stormwater management. So we're designing around that major constraint. There's also an existing stormwater basin on the property that drains stormwater from the car dealership to the north that we're going to be designing around as well. And then in terms of site dimensions, it's when you carve out the wetland, you're not left with a very large buildable part of a site. Roughly about 8 acres are actually buildable here. So when you look at a property like this, we do an analysis of what do we think is the highest and best use for a property. You go through the 4 different categories of real estate. You look at office and you say, okay, what is office demand? Could office be supported here? You look at how office demand has significantly declined over the past decade. That was obviously accelerated with the onset of COVID and the remote working trend, and office demand has continued to wane, and we think that's a trend that's going to continue. So we don't see office as being significantly viable for a location like this. Then you look at retail. Obviously, there's an abundance of retail along the corridor. There's Amazon effect, and e-commerce has changed demand for brick and mortar retail. And a location like this is, I think we'd all agree, not very suitable for any type of retail. Then you look at industrial. In the last 5 years, there's been increased demand for large format warehouse and distribution type real estate. Site layout and existing constraints and how deep the site is and type of dimensions of what is an efficient warehouse or industrial building present a lot of challenges that don't make it very feasible for an efficient building, and that's just too small of a site for a feasible type for industrial use. So we've concluded multifamily, obviously. The area, Gurnee and specifically Lake County, limited multifamily development in the last 20 years in this area. There's significant demand. We've been looking in this area for years because we have a lot of people that are looking for housing in this area and throughout this submarket. For a multifamily project to be successful, there's certain criteria that are really important to it. First, it's proximity to jobs. People want to live in close proximity to where they work. This checks that box. Retail conveniences, there's abundance of retail in this location. Interstate access is unmatched here. This is going to be high quality, modern construction and design, and a type of housing that really meets the needs of what the local submarket is in demand for. We also think it's great that we're in close proximity to the Pace bus route up on Grand. We think that this infill location and close access to public transportation is a positive, and we're within 6 to 7 miles of 2 different metro stations. In terms of additional market demand, we've done market research. We've seen the lack of housing being built of really all types, but specifically multifamily. And there's a lot of people that are looking to sell homes, that are looking to downsize, but they want to stay in the area. And there's really limited options because the housing stock in the area is fairly old. Lake County, as I'm sure you're all aware of, did their housing analysis at the end of last year. And I highlighted on here, I won't read all of them, some of probably the 4 major takeaways from their study. It's a lack of housing is going to limit the county's ability to attract and retain workers. There's a shortage of rental housing units in the area. So I think that study is pretty clear that Gurnee and the county in general, there's an abundance or a shortage of housing that is in great demand. In terms of our target demographic, this is a group that we're targeting that's looking for a modern suburban community like Gurnee. These people may be empty nesters, baby boomers, young professionals, many of those that are also choosing to rent. We like to say that our buildings attract people from age 22 to 82 and everything in between, and we like that. Our typical resident profile could be people in the healthcare field, people in the finance, people that work at Gurnee Mills in the retail sector, police and fire, teachers, service industry, retirees. And obviously there's a major employment base in the immediate area. And we're also looking to not cater to those people that want to live in a 3 or 4 story building with elevators. Our buildings, as we'll get to the design later on in the presentation, these are 2-story, more of a townhouse type style, giving it more of a condo or a townhome type feel. And then we have attached garages for certain apartments within each building. In terms of the development itself, as I mentioned, these are 2-story townhouse style with direct entrances. It's maintenance-free living. They're spread out over multiple 2-story buildings. They're slab on grade. There's no underground parking. It's a combination of parking outside as well as attached garages. In terms of within the apartments themselves, there are oversized windows, open concept floor plans, in-unit full-size washers and dryers, stainless steel Energy Star rated appliances. We'll have a clubhouse and a pool with a first-class fitness center and on-site property management and fiduciary. We manage all the projects that we build and own as well. So from a design perspective, these are 14-unit buildings. There will be 10 of them. As I mentioned, townhouse style with direct entrances. There's 8 garages for each building that are tucked on the back side of the building. We've got a fairly significant design of articulation of gables and metal shed roofs and dark bronze or black windows to kind of bring out more interest and appeal. There's no vinyl siding on this building, for example. This is all hardy material, first-class building materials, giving it more of a distinct look. And then just another perspective. This is the back side of the building. You can see the garages. There's a lot of demand for 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms that will have attached garages, and we think we're going to be serving this part of the market well with this design. And then just a night shot. In terms of the site plan, you can see, as I was mentioning earlier in the presentation, that left half that you see that's kind of grayed out over the green, that is all wetlands. There's about 8 acres of wetlands. You can see in the middle of the site is the existing stormwater pond that exists today. So that is forcing us to really push the development further to the east. As was mentioned earlier about the 10-foot setback, trying to avoid all impacts to the wetlands, which we think is important and responsible, and this plan has accomplished that goal. We also think that the street presence to having a smaller setback across the front on Tri-State will actually give it a nice feel and give it a nice street presence than being significantly set back from the road. You can see we have 2 access points. We've had our traffic consultant do a kind of preliminary review of this. They think that 2 access points will provide an efficient circulation path throughout the development, and they don't anticipate any major impacts on adjacent roadways with the volume of traffic expected here. In summary, this is my last slide. Couple things. We think, what are the benefits here? This is a project that is truly in demand. This type of housing doesn't really exist in the community today. A lot of green space. We're preserving 8 acres of wetlands. Tax bill on this property is less than $1,000 today, so we think that's a fiscally positive impact. Additional new people living here, some new, some older, to the community. We think over a 10-year period, we probably have about a $10 million plus economic impact in terms of consumer spending. And at the end of the day, we think that this is a development that represents the highest and best use for a unique property in the area. So that concludes our presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. I'll start. First, thank you for a very professional presentation. The materials that were provided in advance were very, very good. Personally, I'd be delighted if a development like this were in Gurnee, but not at that location. The density is too high, in my opinion. The setback along Tri-State Parkway is a real stretch. It's going to have a canyon-looking effect. if it's built out that way. And I just don't see it as being a good fit. Anybody else? Kevin?
I would agree. In one of your pictures, you actually got somebody on a scooter on, which I can only guess is Tri-State Parkway. And it's one lane in either direction. It's pretty narrow. There's a lot of truck traffic on that street. It's crowded at times already without another 120 or 140 units on there. It looks like a beautiful facility. The architecture is great, inside and out. That I liked. But this piece of land is way too small for this project, in my opinion. It's not leaving any space for play area. You've got kids riding scooters in the parking lot. And yeah, 10 feet from Tri-State Parkway overlooking a restaurant depot just doesn't seem appealing to me. And I agree this is probably something that's needed in Gurnee, but this spot is just not working. Not in my opinion, anyway.
Dave?
Yes, thank you. I do appreciate the effort tonight, and the product from an overall standpoint looks really great, but I think really at the root of this is the conversation that has to take place as to whether residential zoning is appropriate for this location. So, you know, when we take a look at current zoning, current use in the entire area, and the vision that's put forth by the village within our comprehensive plan, it doesn't call for residential in this area at all. And even if you stood before me today and said, I'm going to take this, I'm going to divide it into 2 lots and put 2 single-family homes on it, I still wouldn't be in favor of it being residential. Because I just don't think that it's really congruent with what we're having here. And so if it gets rezoned as residential, we're just going to create this very dense little residential island completely surrounded by commercial and other industrial uses. And so, you know, and you've done your research, and I'm not going to, you know, argue or debate the merits of the research. Your numbers are probably really solid, and I'm sure we have the need. I'm sure the region has the need. I just wish it was on another site, you know, because I do like it. I do like what you're doing architecturally, and I do like the 2-story component of it. You have a few amenities built into it, but I do struggle swimming against what our vision that is set forth within our comprehensive plan and for that whole tri-state corridor. And yeah, sure, I mean, maybe it's difficult. It's a difficult site perhaps for other commercial or light industrial uses or whatnot. But, you know, if we pull that off the rolls and we say, well, we'll walk away from that, we don't have that opportunity to get it back. And so there's value to the village of Gurnee in it remaining a viable industrial and or commercial site as well. So, so that's basically where I fall on it at the moment.
Okay. Thank you. Todd?
I would have to agree with everything that's been said so far. I do like the way everything is designed, as was stated. It looks very modern, looks very appealing to people, and I think would be nice, but the site is just really too small to expand on. No room for children to play. I can see kids skateboarding, going over into the car lot and playing over there, and then you'll have issues that way. And so I think what we have here would work better in a location that would be a larger area. But for this one, I can't see it fitting in this area. It is really too small.
Thank you. Liliana?
One of your points in your slides said walkability within the community. My question is, what do you mean by that? And from my perspective, it is not a good location for walkability because of where it is, the traffic that the other members mentioned, and just what's around it. So.
No, I don't disagree. I'm not gonna. I love the design. I love the concept. Your multifamily slide, the market demand slide, they're spot on. It's necessary. It's needed. It's just difficult to plot this piece of residential next to the car dealership, next to the school where the buses are parked, leading into heavy industrial. It's hard to see. It's just a sore thumb there, kind of sticking out, and it doesn't necessarily fit the comprehensive plan, nor would it fit in that area? I want to see it somewhere. I literally love the design and everything that you're bringing here, and I would love to see it in Gurnee. It just, that spot is just not the right one for me.
Juanita?
I love the design, I love the thought, not in the right place. And I'm not even sure how many residents you're going to be able to attract to live there because of where it's located and how it would be accessed. I'm just thinking about perhaps even school buses. I think there's a problem for kids playing in an area that is that small. And the other thing I thought about was the wetlands that are behind there. I'm thinking about mosquitoes and things like that would come into this area. So great design, great idea, wrong location for me.
So I think you got a pretty candid view of it. It's, like everybody said, and I said before, it's a great concept, but just not in that location. Okay.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to present. I appreciate your feedback on the design, and maybe we just need to find another location.
I hope you
Hopefully we
do.
can come back
I hope you do.
in
Thank
the
you.
future.
Really do.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is a public hearing for a proposed operation called CarWise to be located at 6460 Gurnee Mills Circle West. A special use permit and variations are involved. Audrian?
Yes. The petitioner, Elite Motors Incorporation, DBA CarWise, is looking to purchase one of the Gurnee Mills Mall outparcels at 6460 Gurnee Mills Circle West to establish and operate a used car dealership with outdoor storage and display. The dealership will also offer service to customer-owned cars in addition to the dealership vehicles designated for sale. The subject site is zoned C6, Regional Commercial District, and was formerly occupied by Saturn of Gurnee Auto Dealership. As part of Saturn's project, the property was developed in 1998 with a two-story, 23,000 square feet building and ample parking throughout the site. The site has been vacant since 2009 when Saturn ceased its operations. CarWise is seeking a special use permit for a vehicle dealership with outdoor storage and display and variations from lighting levels interior to the site that exceed 50-foot candles during operating hours and 6-foot candles during security hours. As the site was developed and used as a car dealership, no major changes are proposed to the building or to the site. Some of the site and building modifications include, but are not limited to, repair and refurbishing of the building interiors and exteriors to reflect CarWise branding, trimming and pruning the overgrown plants on the site and removing those rated as poor or dead, repairing and resealing the parking lot, new wall signage, reskinning existing ground signs, and replacing all interior and exterior light fixtures with LEDs. All new exterior light fixtures must comply with the current codes. The project meets the maximum lighting levels allowed at the property lines. However, foot candle levels interior to the site exceed the maximum of 50 foot candle during operating hours by 0.2 foot candle and 6 foot candle during, and exceed 6 foot candle during security hours by 12.9 foot candles, and variations are requested. The highest lighting output will be mainly near the display areas close to Gurnee Mills Circle. It is worth noting that most, if not all, car dealerships operating in the village have not been able to meet the code and have had to process some kind of relief for lighting levels. Also keep in mind that the subject site sits lower than Hunt Club Road, has no direct visibility to a high-trafficked road such as Grand Avenue, and is not adjacent to any residential use. And the PZB must make a recommendation on the requested special use permit and variations, and the village board will make the final determination. The applicant is in attendance to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. This particular item is a public hearing, so at this time I would request that anyone who intends to give testimony or ask questions about this specific proposal to please stand and be sworn in by the village attorney.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay,
ladies
and
and
please state your name and
My name is Steve Podolny.
And-
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, all the guests here, good evening. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here and present in front of you. My name is Steve Podolny. I'm the dealer principal and the president of CarWise Auto Group. We currently own and operate CarWise of Peoria and Elite Motors of Waukegan. We find this property in the town to be an amazing site to expand our brand, CarWise. We would change the name to CarWise, and would bring a lot of vibrance and beautification to the property that's been sitting vacant for the last 15 years. A little bit about us. We employ, between our group and our organization, close to 90 employees. Now, obviously, not all of them are going to be on the site. We do about $70 million of annual sales between the two locations. Our vision for Gurnee is more just a car dealership. We aim to create a vibrant community hub where residents can come to a well-maintained place and select vehicles at competitive prices and also service their vehicles there. We also want to be a part of the community and be involved in a lot of things that are going on in the city.
excuse me just a second. There's some conversations going on in the back of the room. If you could please either take it out into the vestibule or kindly cease the conversations. It's very distracting. Thank you.
Yeah, so I stand here before you asking for, to consider a special use that was permitted at the site in 1998 to Saturn, and also take into consideration the variance that we're asking for in regards to the lighting interior and exterior to the site.
Okay.
Do you guys have any questions for me?
Okay. I just wanted to be sure that you were done before I open it up for questions. Edwin?
I think it's a great fit for Gurnee. The location was already a car dealership. As far as I know, we didn't have any issues with the other car dealership being there.
David,
think it'd
can
be
you
great.
confirm that?
That is correct, yes.
And I think cleaning up this piece of property would be great.
Okay.
For me, it's a win.
Okay. Juliana? Okay. Ronita?
I agree. I think it's a great use of the facility because it's been vacant for so long, and it'll add to Gurnee Mill's presence.
Dane?
I'm good, and the variance isn't beyond what we've done. There's precedent for what we've done in the past for other dealerships, and it's not exceeding any of those precedents, so I'm okay.
Okay. Todd?
I'm in agreement also. Right now, the property is kind of like an eyesore, and getting it cleaned up will actually help the whole neighborhood area there and hopefully bring in more business.
Dave?
I agree with the fellow commissioners, but I just want to make sure that, for the record, I just want to get clarification on your procedures for test drives. It's stated within our packet that you're committed to basically staying to major thoroughfare, utilizing Hunt Club Road.
Correct.
For the test drives.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that we have a commitment from you that you will avoid test drives within any of our residential neighborhoods and stick to the plan as submitted.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to go through some vigorous training on those routes, and it's in all of our best interests to keep it to what we've promised.
Great, thank you.
I concur with everything that's been said. I think it's great to see the facility be rejuvenated and up and running again. At this time, I'll open the floor to the public for anybody that has a question about this particular item. If not, I'll close the floor to the public. Any other discussion? If not, we need motions for the special use permit request and the lighting variances.
Okay,
Okay, Todd, go ahead.
Sure. Motion for a favorable recommendation on the petition of Elite Motors doing business as CarWise for the special use permit to allow the establishment and operation of a vehicle dealership with the outdoor storage and display on property located at 6460 Gurnee Mills Circle West in substantial conformance with the attached plans, with the condition that the landscaping and the site meets the minimum requirements as set forth in the zoning ordinance and the municipal code.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Todd, you going to do the lighting ones too?
A motion to forward a favorable recommendation on the petition of Elite Motors doing business as CarWise for the variance to allow lighting levels interior to the site to exceed 50-foot candles during the operation hours by 0.2-foot candles on property located at 6460 Gurnee Mill Circle West in substantial conformance with the attached plans.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
And the final motion, motion to forward a favorable recommendation on the petition of Elite Motors doing business as CarWise for a variance to allow the lighting levels interior to the site to exceed 6-foot candles during security hours by 12.9-foot candles on property located at 6460 Gurnee Mill Circle West in substantial conformance with the attached plans.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. As you know, we are the recommending body to the village board, and staff will let you know when the village board will make the final decision. Thank you for your presentation, and hope things go well, and welcome.
Thank you.
to the
Thank you very
village.
much. Yeah, we've been part of Lake County for over 20 years now, and we're excited to come here. So,
It'll be great to see that going again.
yeah.
Thank you.
very much, everybody.
Thank you. Next meeting date is to be held on July 24th, and we do have a public hearing scheduled, so we will be having a meeting. At this time, I'll open the floor to the public. This is an opportunity for members of the public to make commentary about things that are not on this evening's agenda. The Planning and Zoning Board will be in listen-only mode. No feedback or responses will be given to anything. I ask that you try not to duplicate what other people have said that happened to talk before you get up to the microphone, and there will be absolutely no applause, boos, or any other kind of rah-rah in the background. As you approach the microphone, please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jory Stuckwish. I live on Belle Plaine Avenue. There's some supplemental handouts that you were just provided with that go along with our statement today, some visuals and bullet points. Before I start, I just want to say I have stood before you in the past and had a good, thoughtful experience then, so looking forward to this now. I'm here as a spokesperson tonight representing the community members opposed to allowing a text amendment and special use permit for the 3740 Grand Avenue Fairbridge Inn property that would allow for this property to be converted to a homeless shelter. This issue is scheduled as an agenda item for your next meeting on July 24th. Our other two spokespeople and I will discuss the facts that PAD's request to convert the Fairbridge Inn property into an adult-only, low-barrier homeless shelter does not meet the approval standards for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance or for a special use permit for the East Grand Gateway Overlay District. The Village of Gurnee zoning ordinance states that the process for a text amendment, quote, is intended to allow modifications in response to omissions or errors, changed conditions, or changes in village policy. The text amendment PADS is requesting is not related to any omissions, errors, changed conditions, or changes in village policy. The approval standards for text amendments also include, 1, the extent to which the proposed amendment promotes the public health, safety, and welfare of the village, and 2, the consistency of the proposed amendment with a comprehensive plan and any adopted land use policies. The PADS adult low-barrier homeless shelter will negatively affect public safety and welfare, and it is not consistent with the 2040 Gurnee Comprehensive Plan and land use policies. And the following information addressing the special use permit will expand upon this in some detail. We'll start with addressing the Village of Gurnee zoning ordinance approval standards for special use permits, which, number one, the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the proposed special use will not endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. Turning this property into a permanent fixed-site, adult-only, low-barrier shelter will endanger the public health, safety, and welfare of the East Grand Gateway area. PADS has already been sheltering the homeless at the Fairbridge Inn throughout the pandemic using government funds from the CARES Act. And in this time, the conditions of the property and surrounding properties have worsened, and the crime has significantly increased. PADS has already shown a lack of stewardship and accountability, and allowing them to make this property a permanent shelter will not improve community welfare. As stated by PADS in their application to the Lake County Housing Commission, this will be, as I mentioned, an adult low-barrier shelter with 90 people in 27 to 30 rooms. The homeless occupants will be from all across Lake County. By definition, a low-barrier shelter has limited to minimal entry requirements, including criminal background checks and screening for past felonies. PADS will only exclude sex offenders, and all other felonies are permitted. The PADS Executive Director, Alan Swilley, himself has stated that murder felony would be permitted at the shelter. There will be no drug testing before or during the shelter stay to ensure sobriety. For shelter occupants with vehicles, PADS will not ensure that they have a valid driver's license or are safe to operate a vehicle. And these are vehicles that will be driving in the adjacent residential neighborhood. The shelter will have only 2 to 3 staff members overnight for 90 individuals with specialized needs. There will be 2 emergency overnight drop-offs permitted per night, meaning 2 homeless individuals per night in crisis may be transported by police to the Fairbridge Inn for an overnight stay. All of this endangers the surrounding properties and the residential neighborhood that begins 500 feet behind Fairbridge. The Fairbridge property is at the entrance of a residential neighborhood. If you would like to refer to the zoning map that I provided with you with some key properties pointed out. The residential neighborhood is home to 6 in-home daycares, 2 of which are on Waveland Avenue, 1,500 feet from the shelter site. Spalding Elementary School is 1 mile from the shelter site, and the neighborhood is filled with school bus stops. There are 3 children's parks, and there is a senior living facility across the street. This type of shelter will have a serious negative impact on the safety of this vulnerable community. Converting this property to a shelter will also worsen traffic conditions. PADS plans include closing off the driveway from Grand Avenue, making the driveway on Waveland Avenue the only entrance. This simply diverts traffic to a street in a residential neighborhood. The nearest school bus stop is 1,500 feet away. Not only will traffic to the shelter include staff members and the estimated 20% of shelter occupants with vehicles, but PADS application states that PADS will, quote, deploy its existing fleet of vans and buses as well as its Uber program. This property is not safe or suitable for the homeless individuals who would be residing there. I have conferred with the commissioner of the Lake County Housing Commission, someone with personal experience with providing supportive housing to the homeless, and she has explained the following reasons why the Fairbridge Inn is unsuitable for the shelter. First, the Grand Avenue four-lane highway on which Fairbridge is located creates hazardous conditions for motorists and shelter occupants, a largely mobile population that is often traveling on foot. PADS will house 90 people in 30 rooms. The building is inadequate to house this number of people and provide the necessary services that this population needs and deserves. The commissioner referred to this plan as a, quote, shoebox. PADS will not even be able to provide a kitchen for residents with a 90-day average length of stay. There will only be a warming station, and they will rely on food brought in by volunteers. There will also be inadequate staffing for the number of occupants. 8 to 10 staff members during the day, and again, 2 to 3 overnight. The number 2 approval standard for a special use permit is the proposed special use is compatible with the general land use of adjacent properties and other property within the immediate vicinity. The East Grand Gateway Overlay District applies to lot zoned for the C2 district and located generally on Grand Avenue between the city of Waukegan limits on the east and and the intersection of Illinois Route 41 to the west. The permitted matrix for C2 is almost exclusively retail, service, and office. Just behind Fairbridge is the Gurnee Garden Center, a business opposed to the shelter. Immediately beyond the garden center, 500 feet behind Fairbridge, are family homes. An adult low-barrier homeless shelter is not compatible with these properties. In their response to the second approval standard, the PAD's rezoning application states that, quote, the general nature of the use of the property will be consistent, similar to hotel stays, where individuals will be sheltered for finite periods of time. This is not accurate. The shelter occupants will again have an average length of stay of 90 days. There will be 3 homeless individuals per room, many of whom have specialized needs that require services and programming, including life skills, substance use counseling, and medical and mental health services and groups. This is a very different operation from a hotel. Our other spokesperson is going to expand on number 3 approval standard.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My name is Lori Isaacson, and to continue Jory's comments. Number 3, the approval standard for a special use permit. The special use in a specific location proposed is consistent with the spirit and intent of this ordinance and adopted village land use policies. The village's zoning ordinance states, quote, the EGG overlay district is intended to provide opportunities for new development, redevelopment, and renovation of buildings in a manner that creates a gateway and sense of arrival into the village from the east and reinforces the economic viability and character of the area. Development within the overlay district should include amenities to encourage pedestrian activity, improve pedestrian safety, and enhance the corridor's aesthetics, end quote. An adult low-barrier shelter will not encourage pedestrian activity or improve pedestrian safety. It will certainly worsen it. The shelter will also have a harmful impact on the economic development of the area. The East Grand Gateway area's business owners and residents are an economically distressed community, and it is a community of color. And converting the Fairbridge Inn, a commercial property, into a homeless shelter that brings homeless individuals from throughout Lake County to our area endangers economic development and the welfare of this vulnerable community. The Lake County Regional Framework Plan identifies the East Grand Gateway as a community of low to moderate income families and minority populations of 25% or more. Gurnee's 2016 revitalization strategies for East Grand Avenue identifies further economic decline for the businesses on East Grand Avenue directly caused by 10 years of construction on the Route 41 overpasses. The Lake County Framework Plan and the Gurnee revitalization strategies, which are both intended to improve economic development and neighborhood revitalization, do not recommend placing a fixed shelter in the East Grand Gateway. The 2040 Gurnee Comprehensive Plan also does not identify an adult low-barrier homeless shelter as part of the future plans for Gurnee. Quite the opposite, it states, quote, small independent businesses are best positioned to thrive when they are within walking distance to local residents. Areas with smaller and more affordable commercial units that are nearby residential neighborhoods, such as the East Grand Avenue Gateway, should be targeted for new small businesses, end quote. When we asked Ellen Dean, the Economic Development Director, economically, which would be better for this space, a shelter or a commercial business, her answer was, quote, a business. Anything that generates more shoppers is good for surrounding business. A commercial development is always going to have more beneficial economic ripple effects, end quote. The question remains, What do we do with the current Fairbridge Inn property? The hotel property is certainly undesirable and problematic. The fact that PADS has been operating out of Fairbridge through the pandemic is largely responsible for this. The CARES Act government fund that is allowing PADS to shelter the homeless at the hotel is ending soon. So this is part of the solution. In addition to this, the current owner of the Fairbridge Inn is V Capital LLC, a real estate investor who purchased the property in October 2023 for $1.1 million. He then contracted with PADS to sell the property 4 months later in February of 2024 for $2 million. If PADS is not able to convert the hotel to a shelter and this real estate contract falls through, the current owner will be motivated to sell. V Capital LLC is not someone interested in running a rundown old hotel. They purchased the property in order to sell it for a profit. This leaves the door open to many possibilities for what can be done with this property, possibilities that will contribute to the revitalization of East Gurnee. And the village of Gurnee can help facilitate these possibilities. In closing, we ask you to consider all the facts that show allowing the text amendment and special use permit for a homeless shelter at the Fairbridge Inn property will endanger public safety and welfare and economic development, and the approval standards are not met. We urge you to not allow the text amendment and special use permit and protect our community welfare. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, we forgot to ask anybody here who is opposed to the location for the shelter, if you could please raise your hand just to make sure our numbers are counted and acknowledged, even for those who choose not to speak or make a comment tonight. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Go ahead and state your name.
I was just going to wait for it to pass around. Okay. Hello, my name is Becky Kutsinas. I live on 907 Belle Plaine. Thank you for serving, and thank you for taking the time to listen. We have compiled a list of questions from the community for PADS. Many of these questions have already been asked, and we have not received answers. Out of the 48 locations PADS has considered, what makes this location most suitable? Out of the 48 locations PADS considered, how many of these locations have more than 90 beds? PADS is stating that this shelter will, quote, end homelessness in Lake County, but a 90-bed shelter is inadequate to meet this objective. Why wouldn't they consider the largest facility so that they can attack the problem of the projected unhoused more than 500 homeless individuals? Mr. Foote, PADS Deputy Executive Director, has referred to, quote, programmable controls to ensure security at the shelter. What are the programmable controls? Will occupants access their rooms with key cards? Security concerns related to this. If an occupant loses their key card, what is needed for them to get a new one? How is the lost key card disabled? Could the building be entered with the old key card? What if the key card is given to someone else? Is this the programmable control after the screening process? There are 2 police drop-offs permitted per night. Are police drop-offs from all of Lake County, or only Gurnee Police and Gurnee unhoused? When the unhoused are dropped off by the police, is there validation by the police to screen for sex offender status? Where do they go after their overnight stay? How does PADS ensure that when people find out this overnight stay is available, they do not utilize this service inappropriately? How does PADS ensure that this doesn't attract the unhoused people to the area who are looking for an overnight stay? How is panhandling prevented? PADS states that panhandling and other activities are not allowed, but they can't enforce this when occupants are off the property. What if an occupant is picked up by the police for panhandling? Will the police ask if they reside at the shelter? What are the consequences for an occupant who is found panhandling? If panhandling means that they are ejected from the shelter, what happens to this occupant? They are now in Gurnee, they are unhoused, and they've been ejected from the shelter. Since PADS has been sheltering the homeless at Fairbridge Inn through the pandemic, and PADS said they've been planning this fixed site shelter for, quote, a long time, why did PADS wait until February 2024 to contract to purchase the property for $2 million, 4 months after V Capital LLC purchased the property in October 2023 for $1.1 million? Why is PADS paying nearly double the value of the property using taxpayer dollars? Why not find a more suitable property that is worth $2 million and will house more of the unhoused? PADS has given conflicting information on whether or not program participation is required. Definitionally, low barrier shelters do not require program participation. Is program participation required? If yes, what programs are required? If yes, how does PADS determine who participates in what programs? If yes, what length of time does mandatory program participation last? Are shelter occupants required to have a job? Why doesn't PADS require that occupants with a vehicle have a valid driver's license and car insurance to ensure safety of the community? Why doesn't PADS facilitate a partnership that enables the occupants to access car insurance? And I will point out that that question came from me because I was hit by a DUI driver with a revoked license who drove the wrong way on Grand Avenue. And it is only because the Gurnee police installed car seats 1 week before in my new vehicle that I am here today. The insurance company said to me, if I had been in the other vehicle, I would not be alive. Why doesn't PADS do drug testing before or during the program? Wouldn't this accountability improve success rates for securing employment and permanent housing? What percentage of the homeless that will be at the shelter are actually from Gurnee versus other areas of Lake County? Will PADS house 2 people per room, 3 people per room, 4 people per room? There is conflicting information in PADS documentation regarding this. What will determine whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 occupants per room? Why has PADS chosen a facility with only 27 to 30 rooms to house 90 residents and requires such a high ratio of people to rooms? Since PADS will be relying on volunteers to bring in food to the residents, what is the process for this? How do volunteers sign up to provide meals? Are the volunteers providing food going to be local restaurants? Do individual communities members bring food from home? Are the organizers donating food? And what happens when there are not enough volunteers to provide food? And I will say that on July 3rd, early in the afternoon, I did check. PADS has asked us to compare to Evanston Connections for the Homeless, and as of July 3rd, 12:30, there were no volunteers for July 4th breakfast, lunch, or dinner for the Margarita Inn, which houses up to 65 people in 40 rooms. Since this will be a permanent shelter, how does PADS plan to pay for the projected staff and security for the foreseeable future? Where do these funds come from, and could this funding decrease, leaving PADS without adequate funds to maintain staffing and security? Why has Alan Swilley said that there will be a community garden on the property? A community garden is a collaborative project on shared open spaces where participants share in the maintenance and products of the garden. The PADS project plans show a green space with grass only, that trees that only residents have access to. What screening is done for criminal background? Is the only past felony not permitted at the shelter sex offenders? Alan Swilley stated on May 13th, 2024, that past murder felony will be permitted. Is this true? Why does PADS believe 8 to 10 staff members during the day and 2 to 3 staff members overnight is adequate for 90 people, many of whom have specialized needs? What are the positions of these staff members? How many staff members are security? What are the sources of the statistics PADS has provided, and how do they gather this data? No sources have been cited for the following statistics. 85% of PADS are new to homelessness. What is the source for this data? What is the definition of new to homelessness? What length of time is one homeless before PADS no longer considers them new. 3% of PADS clients struggle with drug addiction, 6% of PADS clients struggle with alcohol addiction. This is very questionable since it's much lower than the national average. A survey by the United States Conference of Mayors in conjunction with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration found that 68% of cities reported that substance abuse was the largest cause of homelessness among single adults. And about 26% of unhoused individuals struggle with drug addiction, and about 38% of unhoused individuals struggle with alcohol addiction. Where did PADS get this data? How does PADS know sobriety statistics for their clients since they do not do any drug testing? Is PADS including children in their drug and alcohol statistics? This would be invalid since the shelter does not house children. PADS has stated that occupants have 90-day stays. Is 90 days an average? Is there a minimum and maximum length of stay? If yes, what is the minimum and maximum length of stay? PADS has stated there is a 10 o'clock curfew p.m. for clients not working or, quote, on pass, end quote, for the night. What does it mean for an occupant to be on pass? For occupants who are working and therefore the 10 p.m. curfew does not apply, how does PADS track when these occupants need to return to the shelter? How do occupants enter the building after curfew? How is this monitored and regulated? What are the consequences for an occupant who breaks curfew? PADS stated that there is, quote, no substance use in or on shelter premises, end quote. What are the consequences if an occupant is found using substances on the property? What are the consequences if an occupant uses substances off the property? If an occupant is ejected from the shelter for noncompliance, where do they go? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carrie Wagner. Mine is short. Thank you in advance for listening to the residents you serve on matters of public safety, property values, deterring investors, and many other issues. I've heard that this board is fair, conscientious, and truly empathetic to the concerns of its constituents, making decisions with their best interests in mind. Given the exposure versus disclosure, I'll say that again because that's an important point, given the exposure versus the disclosure of multiple conflicts of interest within the village board, we are asking that all the planning and zoning board members to please disclose any personal or financial conflicts of interest related to PADS or the proposed shelters. We ask that all conflicts be submitted by the Planning and Zoning Board members in writing to the village attorney by Friday, July 12th. Thank you in advance for your cooperation.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nari Powers. I just graduated from Warren Township High School. I was on the basketball team, and I stay on the east side of Gurnee, with my parents. I have a niece and an older sister, and we actually have I've been going to Gurnee for the past 17 years, and I actually have a basketball court outside of my house, and I just don't feel safe anymore going outside and, shooting and training and practicing, because I'm actually going to college for basketball, and I just don't feel like the neighborhood is safe. I stay by Speedway, and I just don't feel like the neighborhood is safe anymore with this PADS being put by our house, because, I would go outside and people are walking, past, just, trying to ask me questions or trying to talk to me. And, it's just, I don't feel comfortable and I don't feel safe, especially, I'm still 18, but I just don't feel safe being out in the neighborhood with the things that's going on. And then I take walks with my dog and my niece, and we walk to the gas station, and, people are, hey, how are you doing? And, trying to just talk to us like weird or ask weird questions. And, I would probably give someone like $1 or $2, but like when I'll come out, sometimes they'll, keep asking me for money and then start cussing me out and things like that. And I just feel like it's very inappropriate with what is going on as of right now. I'm not used to it, and I have never been used to it. I've stayed where I've stayed since I've started high school, and I've been in the area since, middle school and elementary and stuff, and I just don't feel safe by my house, you know, playing basketball. Even though I'm about to leave soon for college, I just don't feel safe, you know, going outside or late at night, being outside, shooting a basketball or such as like that, or taking walks with my dog. But that's all I have to say. Bye.
Thank you.
Hello again, how are you? I'm Candy Stone. I was here last time. I was currently working at Essence Salon and Suites. I've left there. When you go to park at Essence Salon and Suites, all the stylists have to park in the back. On a Sunday, because I work on Sundays, I go to drive around in the back, and one of your pads people washed all their clothes and left them all along the ledge. When you go to turn in the back, and then there's the Temps Now. They have a higher ledge behind the building. And I've heard people here say, you know, one man stood up and he vouched for the police officers and how we forgot about them and how they have to make it home at night. What you all also fail to understand, even though a lot of our safety feels really uncomfortable, you're also drawing other people into the community. It's not just and if I turn a certain way, you guys are gonna say, hey, look here. I'm talking to everybody because all of these people are present. And I wanna know that I have everybody's attention when I say you're inviting the wrong element into the neighborhoods. Not only do we have to worry about the people that are on drugs, that are dealing with mental illness, but you got the guys that are doing crystal meth out in Round Lake that'll be in our area to make sure that they aid these PADS people that need a drug that you all don't have anything centered for them to get help. Unfortunately, I grew up in Waukegan in the middle class area. A lot of the people that I knew growing up as a kid, they became different people. Like nobody ever stays the same. It's going to encourage people that sell drugs, do drugs. They were already ready. They were already uncomfortable. Like I said, ladies, way back in the day in Waukegan, they never would let casinos and stuff come here because of the element that it's going to bring. Between here and there, we already have to worry about Fountain Square. Not only Fountain Square, but now we're going to have to worry about, you know, you guys helping the PADS people. It's inviting the wrong element into our area. We will have crystal meth. There will be crack cocaine here. There will be heroin in our area. I'm not telling you about what might be. I'm telling you what will be with assurance. It's unfortunate that where I grew up at, I know so many things about these things, and there are people's eyes that are close to it. There's not people here that know about drugs and crystal meth and people injecting needles. You heard the lady say during the walk up there behind Harbor and Freight, where they have walking trails, are garbage, stolen goods, needles. This stuff is around our kids. Some of our kids go on the walking paths for exercise, and when that water fills up, all the ducks are out. Even in the wintertime, our kids go sledding. My kids have been sledding down there all their lives, and I've saved all the sleds to give to my neighbors for their kids. And it's like, it's really sad that it's come to this, and we have to constantly come here to tell you how important our community is to us. It might be okay to people that are going to have their pockets lined and filled, but when I said what affects one of us affects all of us, I want you to keep in mind that when you help these so-called people that need help, and there are some that do, when they can't find anything in our neighborhoods, they're going to wander off into yours. They're going to be on the west side of Gurnee and the businesses and your backyards peeping through your windows. One of my neighbors, a guy was taking a knife and trying to pry her window open. Her son just happened to be at home sleeping. They have a Belgian Malinois, a dog, that went crazy. And when he got up to go outside to go out, there was a man trying to pry his window open with a knife. The lady on the other side of me was holding her door shut, calling 911 because somebody was trying to enter through her garage. Do you think this stuff is just going to affect the east side after pockets are lined because pads are going to be here? No, they're going to come into your backyards. They're going to come into your homes. They're going to break into your cars. We already have problems at Gurnee Mills that they're trying to sweep under the rug. People are being jumped and assaulted. They can't shop. People's cars are being broken into. They can't even unload the packages that they've purchased and put in their trunks because people are breaking into their cars. And you guys we're still having this conversation about pads being here. I understand that there are people that it'll benefit you one way or another, but it's going to hurt you the rest. I can give you a 100% assurance that these people from these other neighborhoods and these so-called drug dealers that they're letting out and the ones that are already on the streets, they're not going to miss this opportunity, and they're going to come from everywhere. And I'm sorry that it has to be me to tell you this. You know, I grew up a little different. I grew up in a middle-class area, but a lot of things went on in my family. I moved to Gurnee to be away from that, for my life to be where it was, to bring my daughters up in a better community, and for them to have opportunity, which I made sure that they've had. My daughters shouldn't have to come back from college and worry about, well, I better wait until my dad gets to the door. We sit in our cars and wait for my husband to open up the door just so we can enter the house. Or my other daughter. We wait for her to open the door just so we can get in. If something feels uncomfortable, we call our neighbor. And again, we're disturbing his household. When somebody stole my deer off of my front yard, I had a big, huge deer, we had to use a neighbor next door video footage just to see that. Now we all have to get video cameras. We have to worry if we hear a creak, it's going to make the police have to work harder because people are going to be calling the police nonstop. And if you really want the police to make it home, make it where pads won't be here because they're going to be working overtime. We don't know these people we're letting into our communities. Something bad can happen. A lot of officers might not make it home. Some of you might not make it home. You might go to get in your cars and have to feel uncomfortable and look around. If you can't call 911, sure, somebody might see you on the camera, but what happens until they get there? Like I said, what affects one of us affects all of us. It's not just the east side. If west side is opportunity, if I'm a criminal, and I'm sorry I have to look at it that way, if I'm a criminal and I can't eat, we call it eating. If I can't eat off the people off east, I'm going to come and eat off the people out west because that's where the money is. That's where the $500,000 homes are. And I'm sorry I have to put it in that way, but because you guys are so comfortable with your lives and you don't know how other people were raised and where they were brought up at, you can get a gun all day, you have to get to it. You don't know if there'll be 3 or 5 people working into your homes. You guys remember on Belle Plaine, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, there were 3 guys that went into an older couple's house and robbed them. That didn't just happen at one house. It happened, I think I heard it was 2 houses. We don't know what's going on. We don't know where it's coming from. But like I said, what affects one of us affects all of us. So think real hard and clear before you make the decisions of getting your hands wet and bringing these people into our communities because somebody's pockets are getting lined and, oh, this time is almost up. If we hurry up and get them here, we can get this money. Yeah, when you figure all that out, what else are you going to figure out? When you come home from your vacations and all your property's not there, or somebody's already in your home, or when your granddaughter gets off the bus and you don't make it in time to make it to the door because maybe you're in the bathroom, or maybe you don't hear the door. What happens when one of our kids get abducted? What happens when somebody on drugs that nothing was set up for them to get the adequate help that they needed? What goes on? Yeah, well, you should be afraid. You should be very afraid. It's not just on us, it's on all of us. I even invited my realtor to come for people to start putting their houses up on the market because I'm getting mine ready. And it looks like I'll be out west. And I thank you for your time.
No more applause. If it happens again, I'm going to close the public hearing or public meeting.
Thank you. My name's Andy Thiem. I live on 1046 Waveland, just about 2 blocks from the Fairbridge. And I'm going to be quick. I mean, so many people made some great points, so I don't need to rehash all that. But I'm just going to read a paragraph from the Planning and Zoning website on the Village of Gurnee website. Here's your opening paragraph. The primary responsibility of the Planning and Zoning Division is to guide the physical growth and development of the village. Our goal is to enhance the quality of life while protecting the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens. We do this by providing for the future growth of the village while preserving our neighborhoods and discouraging incompatible development. And just we saw this guy present the beautiful apartments off on Tri-State Parkway there. It just wasn't the right spot. And this property is just not the right spot for a shelter, nestled among residential area. So I please hope you consider that when you make your decision on the next meeting. And thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Dave McClellan. I lived 18 years on 3656 Glen Flora. I've now spent 12 years at 1188 Boulevard View. I spent my whole life in this community, and I just want to say, when you were talking about the car dealership and you were asking questions about having cars driving in and out of the neighborhoods over by the car dealership in Gurnee Mills and that, please think of that these cars with homeless people are going to be driving in and out of our neighborhood. And my wife has been woken up 4 to 5 times in the last 2 to 3 weeks of 2 homeless people that decide, for whatever reason, they want to midnight stroll down our road, down Boulevard View, and they end up sitting in our neighbor's yard. She's got photos of them sitting, smoking cigarettes in their driveway, and in her yard up against a tree. Last week, she called the police. The police showed up, drove away. She called back, actually spoke to the officer, and his exact words are, "They're homeless people that live in the area." 2:30 in the morning, waking her up by screaming at each other, yelling at each other. This is the middle of the summer. It's 90 degrees out. The windows are shut. The air conditioning's running, and she's hearing them. They've also woke my son up. It's here. It's happening. We need to do something about it. I beg of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a real quick statement to kind of follow up with the young lady mentioned and what he just said. Brad Evans is my name. About a month and a half ago, there was cars being either tried to get into my car. They actually got into. It was my stupidity. I didn't lock the thing. But I called the police. I have ADT security cameras around my house. I have the guys right there on film or on the camera. So I called the police. The police came out, and they had already arrested. There was 2 gentlemen that were homeless that were trying to get into people's cars. But they said that they had already been released that night, and that most likely they will not be around again. What do you mean by that? They're not going to be around again? Well, somebody else will take their place. But the bottom line is, the folks are out there, as already mentioned, they are trying their best to get into places, do what they can do, get what they can get, and move on. And East Gurnee is not going to be the ending spot. They will be going over, like, say, the rich side of the house, west side of Gurnee. They'll be visiting you, if anyone lives over that way, they will be visiting your place sometime in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it? I'm sorry, ma'am, you spoke once already. There's a one time.
Excuse me?
Oh, you didn't? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to read this because I get a little emotional. My name is Rachel Thiem. My family has lived at 1046 Waveland since 1978. I grew up in the home, and now I raise my 3 children, 17, 13, and 11. We live 2 blocks away from the proposed PADS low barrier homeless shelter. As a response to one of the questions referring to whether or not the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the proposed special use homeless shelter endanger the public health, safety, or welfare, yes. Since PADS has been housing homeless at the Fairbridge, our family has personally witnessed an increase in people loitering outside the Fairbridge in the parking lot and around the area at all hours of the day and night. Just driving here, we live on Waveland, so we have to drive down Waveland and turn right on Grand to get here. There was a group of 6 people drinking in the Gurnee Garden Center parking lot. I have photo evidence. A group of 2 individuals were sitting at the curb of the Fairbridge parking lot, and another group of 3 people were talking just outside the lobby of the Fairbridge. I travel for work. I stay at hotels 2 to 4 times a week, a month. I have never walked into a hotel and have seen that many people just loitering outside the hotel, all across the country. All of these individuals that were outside today on the way here were all adult men. We used to let our children walk down Waveland to Grand to go to Viking Park to play, or to even walk to school, or walk to the Speedway on Grand. With the increase of adult men loitering outside the Fairbridge, we no longer allow our 2 girls age 11 and 13 and our son age 17 to walk to Viking or Speedway. After personally witnessing a significant increase of police presence and a significant increase of adult males loitering in the parking lots and around the neighborhood, we can say for a fact that the area is no longer safe. Granting this zoning change would endanger the safety and welfare of the residents around this location. Our family has personally witnessed an increase of food garbage, empty and broken beer bottles and cans, drug paraphernalia around the parking lot and on the public sidewalks on Grand and Waveland. This has really taken an uptake since PADS has been housing homeless at the Fairbridge. This litter is unsafe. The materials and drug paraphernalia endangers the public health of the area. As a response to the question referring to whether is the proposed special use homeless shelter compatible with the general land use of the adjacent properties and the property within the immediate vicinity. This location is adjacent to a residential area with many daycares, parks, and children that walk about. Particularly the block I live on has 2 daycares. I constantly see them walk up and down. We used to see them walk all the way down Waveland. Now they can only walk kind of towards Spalding. They never walk in this area, which is bad for the businesses, because I know sometimes they would stop and get them snacks, and they no longer do that. Many of the residents have vulnerable young children and elderly. The granting of rezoning for this area is not compatible with the residential community filled with children and elderly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me paint a picture this way. 20 years ago when I came in, my name is Mateen. I live on 1169 Waveland Avenue. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Thank you.
20 years ago, I came into this neighborhood. We used to play outside, leave the doors unlocked, have the garage open, neighbors, everybody. We didn't care so much. We didn't have such a fear. Now, we're changing course of the route just to take Grand Avenue going west, going through Belle Plaine, though I live on Waveland. This has not happened overnight. We don't open the doors to strangers who are knocking. I posted cameras on my doors, back doors, everywhere. It's just instilled fear within us to do things differently. We don't allow our kids to talk to the strangers. This was not the one that I saw myself or anybody doing in my neighborhood 20 years ago. Are we opposed to homeless people? No. Are we opposed to a shelter within a residential block, which is not good for the adjacent neighborhood? There are school buses going around. There are daycares around. There are kids around. So I would say wrong location. I think you said that very well, Commissioner, for the construction in the Tri-State Parkway. I would think on that line. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Allison, and I have concerns as far as rezoning. I lived in LA, I've lived in San Francisco. I've seen where what happens is when they have a house, as far as a lot of homeless people, and I know we have a lot of homeless people here in Waukegan and Gurnee, because I'm a Safeway driver right now, and I pick up a lot of homeless people, and there's a real need. But the problem is, and again, it's a little bit different in California because of the weather, but they just migrate as far as these people, and like I say, we're rezoning to the property. And I understand the property is going to have a grant. So my concern is, what I've seen is that because it's federal, and we are, what do you call it? I'm so sorry. But basically, what I'm worried about is all these immigrants coming in now, and they're being put up in hotels. Can't they just turn around and say, okay, your government funding, we're going to put the people here in these housings? And that's my concerns.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to close the floor to public comment. I thank you for your responsible participation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Was that you, Dane?
No.
Oh, Tad, okay.
I'll second it.
Oh, you second it? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thanks, everyone.